So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Very nice to meet you. My name's Rupert. I'm the CEO and founder of Stage Clip. I've also got my erstwhile buddy old pal, chum across the pond, Mr. Keith, Dr. Keith Warburg, I should say, who is our CMO and looks after our marketing. So thanks for joining, Keith, and running the controls.
It's a pleasure. Welcome from the US.
So I thought what I would do today was to talk a bit about how we can create great engagement. And the way to do that is to create change. So by instigating change in our audiences, we're able to change thoughts and perceptions and therefore move them in the direction we want to as alumni and marketing professionals. And I think that the big thing that we have to do in order to affect the change in our audiences is one thing, and that one thing is that we need to change their beliefs. Because you see, we all come with beliefs, and therefore we come with our own biases as well. And so if you just share content, if you have pay-per-click advertising and so on, you'll get you'll start to affect some kind of change, but it's not major change. It's not the kind of change that's going to move the needle. So rather than sharing knowledge, we have to share our own passions and our own beliefs, because every other action that happens to our audiences and indeed to ourselves happens after we've changed our beliefs. And so it's our job as alumni professionals and marketing professionals within institutions to create the change that allows that to happen. Now, saying that is one thing, doing it is another, and it's really, really, really hard. But once we've changed beliefs, that does something. It means that we communicate with ourselves differently. And when we communicate with ourselves differently, it means that we start to think differently. Our thoughts become different. And so what happens is we then start to overlay our old perceptions and models of the world with the new one that we've been introduced. But it takes an awful lot to move that needle. And when you have thoughts, we do two things, basically. The first is that we talk to ourselves, literally talk to ourselves. And the other thing is we picture things in our minds. So even as I'm talking to you now, if you think about it, one of the things that I'm trying to do is give you an understanding of what's going on and perhaps changing your beliefs. And you're picturing in your mind what's happening and what's going on. But it's really difficult as marketeers and alumni professionals to create this change, to create the right thoughts in the minds of our audiences so that they take a positive action or an action that we would like them to take. And so one of the things that Stage Clip does really, really well is we're a video company. And so we can basically take the picture, the image, the picture in the mind, as it were, and deliver it to, in our case, the graduate audience, the new alumni audience, and actually in some cases old alumni as well, but I'll talk about that later. And get it into them so they make that leap much quicker. So what we're doing again is we're not just sharing content, we are creating a picture, and we're also creating belief-based statements. And so when they do that, then something happens. When we do that, rather, for our audiences, something happens to them, which is absolutely fundamental to the whole process. And in fact, there's people like Andy Harrington and Tony Robbins who talk about this as well. Is that once you've had your thoughts changed, it does something to us emotionally as well, and that is, it changes our state. It changes our emotional state. And at Stage Clip, we've been very lucky because the content that we create changes emotional states, but not just sort of generically, very individually. So if you were to, for example, say that you were talking to a room of 1,000 people and you managed to talk to them in such a way that 200 of them changed their beliefs and thoughts, and therefore you had changed their emotional state, you'd probably think that was a really good outcome. And what we found with StageClip is that because we are delivering the on-stage moment of every graduate to the graduate, we're changing their emotional state. We're kind of shortcutting all this hard work that normal marketeers are trying to work out day in, day out, so that we take a positive action. And so by changing their emotional states, giving them that one-to-one experience, it means that we're seeing survey completion rates and feedback in excess of 70%. So that's outcome surveys, exit surveys, alumni surveys, careers surveys, and so on. But there's also a side benefit as well by changing the emotional state of the graduate audience, and that is that they share their content, which in turn changes the emotional state of the people that are receiving that content. So it's very powerful for marketeers who are looking to increase the student recruitment pipe, for example, because it's an endorsement of the system by an individual who's been in the system, and they can literally see what that outcome is. So once we've got to the point that we're able to change their emotional states, then we're then able to, our audience is then able to take decisions. And decisions are important because actually one of the worst things that can happen is when we work really hard to engage with our audience and no decision is taken at all. They're just lethargic and apathetic. So we want to get to the point that we've changed their state emotionally so that they can take an active decision. And when they've taken an active decision, then they will take an action. And so again, from the point of view of new alumni and graduates and the bit that we've worked out here at StageClip, that means that they will give you the feedback that you're looking for in terms of either alumni sign-ups to your Graduate platform, sharing content to influence other people with regards to the institution brand, and feedback surveys and so on. And so once they've been all the way around this part of the process to get to that bit there where they take an action, the final outcome for us as marketeers is the results that we want and that we're looking for. And so this process has to start here and get to this point here where we change the emotional state so we get some action from decisions to give us the results that we want. And as I say, the really hard bit is this bit here, going from changing beliefs to changing their emotional state. Once you've changed their emotional state, of course, then you've kind of got them like putty in your hands, and that's when they can start to take the decisions that you want them to take. So that's a little bit about the theory and the psychology there. What I thought I would do next is just show you in practical terms, what does it look like? How much work does it take to do this? How much money does it cost? All those sorts of questions. So we have got here a clip. I thought it was just very important to show you what a clip looks like if you don't already. I've been a bit assumptive from the start and thought that everyone probably had a little look. So here is a clip from Newcastle University last week. So as you can see there, very COVID-friendly ceremony. We're seeing more of that kind of thing where obviously pre-pandemic people are shaking hands a lot more and getting a little bit more airtime. But that there is a clip, and that's the thing that, excuse me, allows you to change the emotional state in your audience, that they feed back and give you the feedback that you're looking for and the outcomes that you want. And so the graduate gets their clip. On that journey towards getting that clip, they're asked to typically to complete a survey. So I've got here a few surveys from different institutions just to give you a flavour of what the kind of thing that they ask. This is from York St John, who had a ceremony quite recently as well. One of the things they've asked for is not a .ac.uk address, rather just a personal email address, phone number, and then they've asked some questions around the employment status of the graduate. Are they employed, or are they in further study, or whatever? And from that, they got some key insights that allowed them to start to act pretty quickly on receiving the data. So in their case, they got 72% completion rate on their surveys. They got some very good social media views as well. They got 235,000 views. And then they could also see where these clips are being shared around the country and around the world, because it helps to influence their marketing when they're coming to do their next campaign for recruitment. But interestingly, what they were looking for was they wanted to understand what was happening with their graduates in terms of their careers and their further study. So there's a number of institutions now which are starting to offer micro-credentialing courses. So whereas in the past it was quite important to know whether or not you had a chance of bringing that same graduate back in for some postgraduate study, there's also institutions now that are just looking to make sure that they've still got a connection with their audience and their alumni, so they can bring them back for micro-credentialing throughout their careers. So that was York St John. Here we've got Staffordshire University, who again did a similar thing. Again, they wanted to make sure they had a personal email address to talk to the grads on in the future. They also asked for a phone number. Many of our clients are actually texting new alumni very quickly after the event with either information offers or offers of help for careers and so on. In this case, they've actually also asked for a home address, and I believe that is for mailing campaigns and making sure they've got the first address correctly for each graduate, so they don't waste money. And then they've asked how would they like to best be connected to Staffordshire in the future. So is it through reunions, returning as a lecturer, following on social media, and so on. So it means that they can start to understand the individuals in their audience and how they want to be communicated to and with, and what they can then be doing for them that's relevant, meaningful, and means that there'll be a long-term, deep relationship. And then again, they've also asked about the employment status of those graduates, so they could talk to them about any support that they may need in the careers world. And then finally, again, they've asked the question to see if they're interested in any further study, and if they are, then they'll start to be sent information regarding what's available. And if we were to look at what their statistics look like, that one got an 82% completion rate, very, very good. You can see here as well, actually, that the communications, the email communications to the graduates around their clip and around the surveys was also very good here. So the first email that went out got a 91% open rate and an 84% click-through rate, which is very positive. And again, for a relatively small number of graduates this time, 719, a pretty significant social media presence as well. So that was well received by them. And they've now been running this campaign for, well, certainly two or 3 years before the pandemic. And again, since the pandemic, and it's worked really well for them as an organization. Let's go back. This is UWE and Bristol. So they had one last week. I don't have last week's stats yet, but the questions that they've been asking are the same and have been, again, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. They just want to opt into alumni news, and or asking them, sorry, if they want to opt into alumni news, and then how would they like to be talked to afterwards. So really 2-question survey, this one. So typically gets a good response because it's so easy. Surveys, which are tick box type surveys, yes, no surveys, radio button surveys do really well. The ones that tend to not perform not so well are where you're asking for long free-form text, particularly when people are using fat fingers on mobile phones to fill it in. So really keeping your questions to about 5 key questions in a tick box or radio button type format works best. And if we were to look at what they did on there, they got from 1,500, so 50% of their, or just over 50% of their audience signed up to opt in to Alumni News for the future, and then they also got sign-ups to a platform as well. So, and again, that from 1,500 clips, 220,000 views, which is very good. And then finally, I just thought I'd talk a little bit more about getting sign-ups. So there are a number of our institutions that use platforms such as Alumni or Graduate, and you can use clips to drive your audience to sign up to your platform. So if you gate the clips on the platform, then the graduates have to sign up to get access to those clips. And because that content is so compelling, because it changes their emotional state, they're very happy to go through a few hoops to do that. So they will go in and register and join those platforms. And so, for example, University of Westminster, that has been a key goal for them for a number of years now. So they gate all their clips on their platform, and that's the one that you can see here. And then finally, I'll just talk a little bit about heritage clips as well. So not only can you engage your audience, your newest audience, and I think actually really important to say when we talk about that bit, the emotional state that they're in, that emotional state lasts, you have a window on that. And so you've got to make sure that if you really want to capitalize on that and get great data and get great feedback and then get great engagement, you've got to capitalize on the moment. So what we find is that it sort of drops off, the engagement drops off fairly quickly after about a week from graduation. So being able to talk to them and communicate with them in that moment while their emotional state is exactly where you want it to be is really, really crucial. But what we found with heritage clips was that you can still change the emotional state of your audience by doing something a little bit further out. And so we ran a campaign recently with St Andrews University, where we took VHS cassettes from 1991 and 1996, so 25 and 30 years out. We digitized them, and we were given the lists of alumni for those years. And for those, they had pretty sketchy data around those people. So, but those people they did have, they got clips out to, and also said, look, if you know someone who might want a clip and hasn't got one, then get in contact with us and we'll send them their clip. That worked really, really well, and they were able to get a load of new data onto the system. 20% of the people updated their information as well, which is quite important. And of course, from a PR and communications exercise, it was fantastic because they got to see some retro clips, and I'll show you one here. Even using old videotape to start the opening.
Joanna Luke.
So she gets it once in real time, and then there's a slow motion version of the same thing. Everything's captioned with the name and degree of the student, and in this case also the year that the event happened. And as you can see, things really don't change much over time. And then a congratulatory message there from the team, and so that worked really well too. So in terms of like, wow, crumbs, how do we put all this together? It looks really complicated, looks really difficult, and all that type of thing. It's actually not. So I am going to now come back here and just show you what do you have to go through to get to this point. Well, it all starts with you get a link from us, basically. It takes you to a page that looks like this, where you have your profile details. Very simple, the normal stuff, you know, what your address is, what the time zone is, and so on. It takes about 2 minutes to fill in, and then we'll just ask also for your logo. This is a really easy one as well, and your colors. And I can see some chat coming in, but I haven't got it big enough on my screen. So if there's anything, Keith, that you want to interject with now, very happy to give the floor to you.
Yeah, we'll take it at the end. We're good.
Okay. You upload your logo and your colors, really simple, just like you'd see with many other things. Here's one for Wolverhampton, for example. As soon as the logo comes in, it actually picks out their primary and secondary colors as well, so you don't even have to think about that. And then that's that bit done. And then once that bit's done, you come in and you create your event. So in the case of Newcastle, I'm on a dummy page at the moment because they have actually got a live thing going with us at the moment. But in the case of Newcastle and in their real environment at the moment, they've got something like 18 ceremonies in the system, and some of them are still in progress, as we can see here. Some are published. So we come in, this bit actually will be predetermined for you, but you come in and you'd say, right, this is my ceremony 2. It's in the Great Hall. And it's in Newcastle. And then at this point, I can then come and do the bit that we've just seen there, which is create the survey. And so it's a very simple process. You type in what you want the survey to be called. You might want to add some blurb description, a bit like you would see here, for example, where it says, we'd love to stay in touch, or if my mouse will work. In this case, nothing. Oh yes, complete the survey to access your clip. Something as simple as that, for example. Go in there. And then it's a case of creating the questions you want. Now, these questions can be created from a toolbox on the left here. So we put a question in there. Maybe it's about the event itself. Maybe it's a survey that your events office are interested in to get feedback on how they can make the whole event better or not. There's also predefined questions in here, the ones that happen all the time for virtually every single institution that we work with. A classic being, for example, personal email address, what your current plan is, you know, I'm employed and satisfied my position and all the variants there and so on. So you can build it very easily and very quickly. And then it's just a case of saving that survey and then just making sure it's applied there. And then the other thing that we'll just need to know for each event is what the date is and what the time of the event is, because that allows us just to keep track of the production of the clips, which are typically ready 24 hours after we've received the video footage. And that's it. So there you've got 2 events in the system there now. The graduate, and what happens for the graduate? Well, once the things are in the system, there's a few other steps that need to be taken. The first is we have to put students into the system. And so that's basically the list that you've got, the graduate list that you've got already. A first name, a last name, and an email address. These are made up email addresses just for these purposes. And that means then that we can communicate with the graduates to let them know essentially that their clips are ready. And you can see here, this is the email communications flow. So this lets them know the clips are ready. You can see at any time how many clips have been delivered and what the open rates are, and how many emails have been delivered and what the open rates are, and so on. There's a data protection issue, of course, around names and email addresses, and we have very strong and robust data protection arrangements with all our institutions, and we'd obviously share that with anyone that we're working with, so that's in place beforehand. And then really, from your perspective, that's job done. The final thing is getting the ceremony footage in, so that there is a link to a page like this that your videographer would either put the live stream link in or upload the video footage to. You can, if you want to, also choose your clip themes. They'll either auto-generate or you can create something yourself. And you can get a bit of pre-roll or out-roll from your marketing departments, and it's all drag and drop. And then once that's gone through and we've got the names list and the footage, then the system just starts wearing away and creates clips that end up in a place like here for you to look at. And at the same time, then your graduates are also sent an email to say, hey, congratulations, come and get your clip. And when they do, they'll then come to a page like this where they'll be asked for their survey results, their survey questions. I'll just have to put some stuff in here. And they complete the survey, and then they are there on that page and get their clip. So I realise it's gone on a little bit longer than it should have done. So and there's some questions. So I will open it up to the floor. I think finally I'll just say one thing is the alumni data then ends up on screen for you to have a look at here, and then you get your full statistics too on what's been produced, where it's been shared, and so on. So we can see we've done 2 surveys here out of 4, which we set, and that was 50%. So I've whittled on a bit. I do apologise, but hopefully that's been helpful.
Yeah, Rupert, I don't know if you mentioned, but I just want to reiterate, our typical completion rates for those surveys typically run in the 70 to 80% range, sometimes as high as 90%.
Yes.
And I think that's for 2 reasons. One, it's because the schools are capitalizing on that emotional state. You think the graduation day is the biggest day of the academic calendar. And so that's when your graduates are going to be most connected to the university, to the college. And so they're more willing to, at that point, exchange data while their affinity is high. I think the other piece of that is that it's just a really quality, we like to say a very good carrot to dangle in front of them. It's something that they really want, and they're not willing to bypass the survey in order to get it. They're willing to go and fill that out. So we do have one question from, let's see, Roseanne. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that.
Roisin is Irish.
Roisin, beautiful. Yes. All right. On the size of the cohort for, I believe it's for St. Andrews. So did they choose to do that with just a specific group, or were they testing that with a specific cohort?
For St. Andrews?
I believe so, yes.
So St. Andrews typically has around 2,000 graduates a year. I'd have to go back and have a look at the stats to refresh my memory, how many were actually on there. Oh, there's one that said 700. So the University of Staffordshire, right?
Staffordshire, that's right.
Right,
okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
So University of Staffordshire, huge university. We do thousands of clips for them. They have one small ceremony every November as well for a small cohort of about 700 or 800 graduates. So that's why that's what that was. But they've got statistics for their big cohorts as well, which I could dig out if you wanted to have a look at those.
That's a good addition, is that we not only work with the main university ceremonies, but we also very often do colleges, degree programs, other cohorts within the university. We can actually stack those reports so you can see specifically how the College of Business is done compared to the main university. We do that extensively here on this side of the pond as well.
And actually, one of the other nice things that we're seeing as well is that there's many campuses, not so much actually in the States, but in the UK and Ireland, that have affinity programs and affinity campuses in areas like Asia and Dubai and so on. So that means that that you can also give parity to all those graduates across the world without having to, bring along a box full of mugs or pens or t-shirts or whatever it is that you normally do to try and engage on the day at the event. So it's digital, means you can measure it and so on. And I guess actually that leads to another question which is always asked. One is, how easy is it? And the second one is, how much does it cost? And so the answer is, it depends on volume, but as a proxy, there are some minimum fees. 995 quid is the minimum fee. And then it's really on a per participant basis, somewhere between, for the UK and Ireland, about £2.50 to £3 per graduate. And I think I should also stress that for the survey data, you only pay for the data you get. So if the survey doesn't deliver, then you don't pay. You won't pay for 100% of the audience. You'll pay for the 70% or the 60% or the 80% that actually complete the survey. And we were very keen to make sure that that was something that we did, so that we drove ourselves as a business to deliver quality for our customers, because otherwise we're really just like a Lime survey or one of those other brands, Survey Monkey.
Yeah, there's another great question here about collaboration on campus. So one thing, I don't know if we said this at the beginning, but prior to StageClip, I spent 10 years on the university side of things at a large state university, public university in Georgia, as well as at Florida State University, which is a top 20 school in the US for their alumni association. And one of the things that I always found was key to success on campus was that collaboration. And ultimately, we drove a lot of that. So we bring a lot of that to what we do as StageClip. If schools aren't already collaborating, schools, colleges, universities aren't already collaborating, we actually will help drive that and connect that. So for surveys, the alumni offices, the career offices are often very interested in career outcomes and job placement. New email information, that sort of thing. Whereas your graduation departments, sometimes student affairs and even admissions, are very interested in using that for student engagement and recruitment. So it's not unusual at all for us to have individuals from all of those departments working on the project or being in our conversations as we're going along.
Yeah, some really great benefits for careers and student recruitment as well. Sophie's got to jump, so no worries there. The other thing I should say as well is that although you can pay to gift clips to your graduates, which undoubtedly gives the best engagement, if budgets are a concern, and they are for some institutions, particularly coming out of pandemic, we also have an on-demand system where you go through the same process I've just showed you there, but graduates can purchase clips for themselves, and you earn yourself a little commission for your alumni team, or for a scholarship fund or a hardship fund, or whatever it might be.
Excellent. So we may have one more question. I see dots floating here. But Rupert, could you just give us a little bit of information how we're going to follow up with this webinar? So obviously we're going to be, we're recording, we're going to send this out afterwards, but what's the best way to get in touch with us if we're interested for May or June or July?
Best way to get in touch is either on the website, stageclip.com, or you should also have my email address, because I've been pestering people about this for a little while. So please just send me an email. I'm absolutely delighted to talk, take you through things in more detail, give you access to the system and so on.
All right, great. Well, Rupert, thank you very much for sharing. I know this was, it's always a good reminder for me to go through and remember just the psychology of what we're dealing with our graduates and how we can reach them and get them even further connected to the university. Thank you all for joining. I know some of you had to jump a little early, but we will be sending this out as a recording afterwards. If you do have any other questions, as Rupert said, you can join us at stageclip.com, and we look forward to partnering with each of you for your summer and spring ceremonies. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.